I'm not sure why I'm even posting this here. Maybe because for the first time in my life, I feel like I need to say something out loud to someone who doesn't already have their mind made up about me. My dad died 3 weeks ago. Heart attack. Just gone. One minute he was complaining about his blood pressure meds being too expensive. The next minute, I get a call from my brother saying he's gone. I hadn't talked to my dad in almost 4 years before that call. Not because I didn't want to, but because he told me not to come around anymore. That's the part people never want to hear. They just remember what they're told. Evan left. Evan couldn't handle responsibility. Evan disappointed his father. I showed up to the funeral anyway. I didn't even know if I'd be welcome, but I couldn't not go. The man was still my father. He raised me, even if half of that time was spent yelling about how I'd never be like my brother, Jacob, the golden child. The guy who did everything right. Varsity football, scholarship, married his high school sweetheart, 2 kids, and the same damn smile my dad used to wear in his old photos. I walked into the church that morning wearing the only black suit I owned. Everyone's heads turned. My aunt, who used to give me cookies after school when I was a kid, just looked through me, like I was a stranger. The service started, and people stood up one by one, talking about what a great man my dad was. A hard worker, a good father, a role model. I stayed quiet. I wanted to stand up and say something, but I didn't want to make a scene. But when it came time for the family words, Jacob got up, cleared his throat, and said he wanted to say something on behalf of our family. Then he looked at me, dead in the eyes. "You don't deserve to speak," he said, voice calm, steady. "You were his biggest disappointment." I swear I thought I misheard him. But then I saw the looks around the room, people nodding. My mom, sitting in the front row, just stared straight ahead. My uncle folded his arms. Even my cousin, who used to text me sometimes, looked down at the floor. I felt this heat crawl up my chest, like every word I'd been swallowing for years was about to spill out. But I didn't say a thing. I just stood up and walked out. The door slammed behind me louder than I meant. It echoed down the hallway. Outside, the air hit me cold and hard. I could hear Jacob's voice still faintly through the door, talking about what a good man Dad was, how proud he'd be of the family he left behind. I wanted to laugh, or scream, but I just sat on the curb in the parking lot, staring at the cracked pavement, feeling that stupid tightness in my throat that you get when you refuse to cry. That night, I drove back to my apartment, tiny 1-bedroom, barely holding together, and just sat there. I couldn't sleep. I replayed his words in my head over and over. You were his biggest disappointment. And the worst part was, I believed it. Because yeah, I messed up. I dropped out of college sophomore year after I got arrested for possession. Small amount, nothing major, but my dad showed up to the hearing and didn't say a word to me the entire time. Just shook his head when the judge gave me probation. Then there was the car. His car. The one I wrecked at 19 when I was trying to drive to some party drunk and skidded off the road. Nobody got hurt, but he never looked at me the same after that. He'd tell people he was toughening me up, but what he was really doing was cutting me out piece by piece. So yeah, when I left home, I didn't fight it. I told myself maybe that was for the best. I moved to another city, got a job fixing HVAC systems, started rebuilding from scratch. And for 4 years, I didn't hear a word from him. Until that phone call. 2 weeks after the funeral, I got a letter from a law office downtown. I didn't even think I'd be included in the will. But apparently, my dad had left instructions for both of us to be there, me and Jacob, when it was read. I almost didn't go, but something told me I should. The office was small, smelled like coffee and printer ink. The lawyer was one of those older guys who'd clearly been doing this forever. He looked at both of us and said Dad had left letters, one for each of us. Jacob went first. He opened the envelope, unfolded the paper, and started reading quietly. But after a few seconds, his face changed. His jaw tightened. Then he looked up at me like he'd seen a ghost. "Ask your brother why." That's all he said out loud, like he was reading it to himself. But the whole room went silent. I just sat there, staring back, not sure what the hell he was talking about. That's when I realized my father, who had hated me for most of my adult life, had left something unfinished. And apparently, whatever it was, had my name written all over it. Jacob's face went pale, like someone had pulled the floor out from under him. The lawyer cleared his throat and asked if he wanted to continue reading. But Jacob just shook his head and said, "No, that's enough." I sat there, trying to read him, but he avoided my eyes completely. His fingers were shaking, And for the first time in my entire life, I saw something I never thought I'd see on his face. Fear. Not anger, not judgment. Fear. The lawyer turned to me and slid my envelope across the table. Yours, Evan, he said. The room was dead quiet except for the sound of paper tearing. Inside, there was a single folded letter, Dad's handwriting, neat and heavy. The kind he used when he was trying to make a point. I unfolded it slowly. It started simple. Evan, if you're reading this, it means I'm gone. I know things weren't right between us, and I know most of that was my fault. I told myself I was trying to make you strong, but what I really did was make you small. I'm sorry for that. I was angry at myself and I took it out on you. I didn't realize I'd been holding my breath until my hands started trembling. I kept reading. There's something your brother doesn't know. Something I never had the courage to tell him. It's not my pride keeping me quiet. It's guilt. But I can't take that with me. So when he asks you why, tell him the truth. You'll know when it's time. That was it. No mention of money. No house. No inheritance. Nothing. Just that. I looked up at Jacob, and he was already staring at me like I was supposed to explain it right then and there. What the hell does that mean? He snapped. I don't know, I said, and it came out softer than I meant it to. Bullshit, he shot back, standing up. You've always known more than you said. You think you can come back here after everything, and suddenly you're the victim? The lawyer told him to calm down, said there'd be more details to discuss about the estate, but Jacob wasn't listening. He stormed out, slamming the door so hard the glass rattled. I just sat there, letter still in my hand, feeling like my chest was full of static. After a minute, the lawyer sighed. He's taking this hard. You boys didn't have the easiest relationship with your father, did you? I just shook my head. You could say that. He hesitated, then leaned back in his chair. There's one more thing. Your father left a small box to be delivered to you personally. He said you'd understand when to open it. He handed it over, a worn-out metal lockbox, maybe the size of a shoebox, with a small key taped to the top. No label, no note. Just the faint smell of old engine oil and tobacco. Dad's smell. I didn't open it there. I couldn't. I drove home, box on the passenger seat, feeling like it was staring at me the whole way. That night, I just sat at my kitchen table with a beer in my hand, staring at the damn thing. The silence in my apartment felt heavy. Every time I looked at it, my stomach twisted like it knew what was inside was going to hurt. I didn't open it until the next morning. Inside was a stack of old Polaroids, a folded piece of paper, and a small silver lighter with the initials JDW engraved on it, Jacob's initials. The first Polaroid was me, around 12 years old, standing next to my mom's old Buick. My dad had his arm around me. He was smiling. I barely remembered that moment. The next few were from around the same time. Me and Jacob fishing, us in the backyard, birthdays, Christmas mornings. Then they started changing. In one, Dad was sitting on the porch with a beer in his hand, staring off into the yard. In another, Jacob was helping him into a chair, Dad's hand in a brace. I didn't remember that injury. Then there was one that made my stomach drop. It was the two of them, Dad and Jacob, standing next to a young woman I didn't recognize. She had a baby in her arms. The baby had my dad's eyes. The date scribbled at the bottom said, 2007. That was the year Dad and Mom separated for a few months. The year I got into that car accident. I unfolded the paper next. It was another letter. Evan, I need you to understand that what happened wasn't your fault. You were just a kid. You didn't know what I'd done. But I can't let Jacob go on believing a lie. When he finds out, he's going to hate me. Maybe he'll hate you too. But it's better he hears it from you. No explanation beyond that. No details. Just those words. That night, I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that woman's face, that baby's face. I thought about the fights Dad and Mom had that year, about the way Mom cried in her car and told me not to tell Jacob what I saw. And now, I couldn't stop thinking about what it meant. I tried calling Mom the next morning, but she didn't answer. The call went straight to voicemail. I texted her, Mom, I found something. I need to talk. No reply. I didn't know what to do. I didn't even know what I was holding. A secret? A mistake? Proof that my dad wasn't who any of us thought he was? All I knew was that whatever was coming next was going to destroy what little family I had left. And I couldn't shake that phrase from the letter, you'll know when it's time. I just didn't realize the time would come sooner than I thought. Because the next day, Jacob showed up at my apartment. And he wasn't there to talk. When I heard the knock, I already knew it was him. It wasn't polite or hesitant. It was hard, sharp, the kind of knock you feel in your chest. I opened the door, and there he was. My brother, still wearing that same perfect composure he always had. But underneath it, something was cracking. His eyes were red, his jaw tight. "Can I come in?" he asked, but it wasn't really a question. I stepped aside. He brushed past me, looked around like he couldn't believe this was where I lived. The peeling paint, the secondhand furniture, the buzzing fridge. "Nice place," he muttered, sarcastic. "What do you want, Jacob?" He didn't answer right away. He paced, rubbed his temples, then turned to face me. "That letter Dad left me. The one that said, 'Ask your brother why.' I've been thinking about it nonstop." I said nothing. He took a deep breath. "Then I went to Mom's house last night. She wouldn't open the door, but I could hear her crying inside. Wouldn't even talk to me. So, I figured whatever this is, it's about her too." He stepped closer. "So, I'm asking you now. Why? What the hell did Dad mean?" I stared at the floor for a moment. The silence between us felt like a loaded gun. "Jacob," I said finally, "I don't know everything. But I think I know part of it." He scoffed. "Part of it? What does that even mean?" I walked to the kitchen table, grabbed the metal box, and set it down in front of him. "He left me this." He frowned, then opened it. The moment he saw the photos, his whole body stiffened. He flipped through them quickly, then froze on the one with the woman and the baby. "What is this?" he whispered. "I was hoping you could tell me," I said quietly. "That's Dad. That's you. But I don't know who she is. Or the baby." Jacob stared at the photo like he was trying to burn a hole through it. "That's not me," he said after a moment. "I wasn't even there." "Yes, you were," I said. "Look at the date." His hands were shaking now. No, I remember that year. Dad was gone for a few months, remember? He told Mom he was working upstate. I was in college. You were the one who stayed behind." He looked at me sharply. "You're saying you took this?" I hesitated. "No, but I remember seeing him once. That woman. He didn't see me. I was in the truck, waiting." He handed her something and kissed the baby on the head before driving away. Jacob's mouth dropped slightly. "You're lying." "I wish I was." He stared at the picture again, then at me, his voice cracking for the first time. "You're telling me Dad had another kid?" I didn't answer. He laughed bitterly. Of course he did. And let me guess, you knew. You knew this whole time, and you just let me believe he was some goddamn hero." I felt the anger flare in me then. "You think I wanted to know that? You think I didn't try to forget? I was a kid, Jacob. I saw him living a double life, and when I tried to tell Mom, she told me to keep my mouth shut. Said it would destroy the family." Jacob turned away, gripping the back of a chair so tight his knuckles went white. "So you let me hate you," he said, his voice low. "You let me think Dad cut you off because you were some screw-up. You let me defend him all these years." I swallowed hard. What was I supposed to do? Nobody ever listened to me anyway. He spun around, eyes blazing. "You could have told me the truth. You wouldn't have believed me." We just stood there, breathing heavy, neither of us backing down. Then he looked back at the box, at the lighter with his initials. He picked it up slowly. "He gave this to me when I was 16, he said, voice barely above a whisper. Said it was his dad's. He told me to take care of it, that it'd be mine one day. Guess he was already giving the same line to someone else's kid. There was something so hollow in his voice it almost hurt to hear. He sat down finally, his head in his hands. For a minute, the room was silent except for the faint hum of the fridge. Then he said, "There's something else, isn't there?" I hesitated. "Yeah." I pulled out the letter and slid it across the table to him. He read it slowly, his eyes scanning every word, his mouth tightening more with each line. When he finished, he just looked up at me. "He wanted me to hear it from you." "Yeah." Jacob exhaled shakily. "So where are they? The woman? The kid?" "I don't know," I said. "But the date on the photo. If that baby was born in 2007, he'd be 18 now." Jacob leaned back, staring at the ceiling. "Jesus Christ." He rubbed his face, then said quietly, "You think that's why Mom wouldn't talk to me? Because she already knew?" "I think she's known for a long time," I said. "And I think Dad finally wanted to come clean." He didn't respond. He just sat there, lost somewhere deep inside his head. When he finally spoke again, his voice was low. "You know what's funny? I spent years defending him. Even after he cut you off, I told myself you deserved it. I told myself he was just trying to teach you responsibility. And all that time, he was the one lying to us." He stood up, pacing the room, running his hand through his hair. You know what the last thing he ever said to me was? Take care of your brother. He said that the day before the heart attack. I didn't know what to say to that. Jacob stopped by the window, staring out at the parking lot. I need to know if there's someone else out there. Another family. Another me. Then he turned to me, eyes steady. And if there is, we're going to find them. Together. Something in his voice had changed. Not anger this time. Determination. I nodded slowly. Okay. He nodded back, and for the first time since we were kids, we weren't enemies. Just two brothers standing in the wreckage of someone else's lies. He walked toward the door, paused, and looked at me again. You still have Dad's old truck, right? Yeah. What? He gave me a tight smile. Because we're going to need it. And that was the first time since the funeral I felt something other than shame. I felt the beginning of the truth pulling us both somewhere neither of us was ready for. 2 days later, we were on the road. Jacob had texted me the night before, be ready at 8. I found something. No context, no explanation. Just that. When he pulled up outside my building, he was in Dad's old Ford, freshly washed, like he was trying to make it look new again. He had a manila folder on the dash and that same look in his eyes he used to get before a big football game, focused, relentless. I got in, shut the door, and said, "You want to tell me what's going on?" He handed me the folder. Inside were printouts, reverse image searches, social media screenshots, and one photo that made my stomach twist. It was the woman from the Polaroid. Older now, a few more lines on her face, but unmistakably the same person. Her name, apparently, was Rachel Holloway. She lived about 2 hours away in Dayton, Ohio. You found her? I asked. Yeah, he said, pulling onto the highway. Took me half the night. Her Facebook's mostly private, but she's got a son, Ben Holloway. Guess how old he is? 18. He nodded. And he looks a lot like us. I leaned back in the seat, exhaling slowly. So what's the plan? We just show up? Jacob didn't answer right away. I don't know yet, he said. I just know I need to see her. Need to know if it's true. We drove mostly in silence. The road stretched out forever, flat and gray, the kind of early spring morning that can't decide if it wants to rain or not. I watched the landscape roll by and thought about all the years Dad and I didn't speak, all the birthdays he missed, all the phone calls that never came. I thought about that last letter and the guilt buried in every word of it. When we finally pulled into Dayton, Jacob parked outside a small diner off Route 48. He was gripping the steering wheel like it might shatter in his hands. You sure about this? I asked. No, he said, but I'm doing it anyway. We got out, walked across the parking lot, and found a booth inside. The waitress gave us menus and a polite smile, and for a minute we just sat there pretending to look at them. Then Jacob's phone buzzed. He picked it up, glanced at the screen, and said quietly, "She's here." I followed his gaze out the window. There she was, Rachel Holloway, walking into the diner, alone, holding a takeout order slip. Her hair was tied back, her posture weary but familiar somehow. Jacob froze. He didn't move, didn't blink. He just watched her like he was seeing a ghost. Go talk to her, I said. He shook his head. No, you do it. She won't know who I am. I sighed, pushed the booth back, and stood up. My legs felt heavy as I walked over. Rachel? I asked quietly. She turned, surprised. Yes. I hesitated. You don't know me. My name's Evan Walker. The moment I said Walker, something flickered across her face. Recognition. Fear. Regret. She blinked, set the takeout bag down, and said softly, "You're his son." I nodded. Yeah. Her eyes dropped to the floor. I figured this day would come eventually. I glanced back at Jacob, who was still in the booth, watching. My brother's here too. He wants answers. She let out a long breath, then nodded. All right. Sit down. We went back to the booth, and when she saw Jacob, she froze again. You look just like him, she whispered. Jacob's face hardened. Yeah, that's what everyone says. She sat down slowly, folded her hands together, and for a few seconds, no one spoke. The air was thick enough to choke on. Then she said, "You probably hate me. I'd understand if you did. But the truth is, I didn't ask for any of this. Your father, he made promises. He said he'd leave your mother. Said he was starting over. I believed him. God help me, I believed him." Jacob looked like he'd just been punched in the gut. She went on. "When I got pregnant, he disappeared. Just gone. He came back once, when Ben was a few months old. Gave me some money, said he was sorry, that he'd fix things soon. He never came back after that. I swallowed. You never told him about us. Her eyes filled with tears. He knew. He just couldn't face it. Jacob's voice was sharp now. So you're saying we have a brother? Out there somewhere. She nodded. Yes. His name's Ben. He doesn't know any of this. As far as he's concerned, his father died before he was born. I didn't want him growing up with someone else's mess hanging over him. Jacob sat back, rubbing his face. Jesus Christ. She reached into her purse and pulled out her phone. If you really want to meet him, he works weekends at a garage a few blocks from here. But please, don't tell him everything. Not yet. Let him hear it when he's ready. Jacob stood up, shaking his head. I don't even know what I'd say to him. Rachel looked up at him with this tired, broken expression. Tell him you're his brother. That's all he needs for now. We left the diner without another word. Outside, Jacob leaned against the truck, staring off into nothing. I can't wrap my head around this, he said quietly. All those years we thought he was this strict, righteous man. Turns out he was just running from himself. Yeah, I said softly. But now we know. He turned to me, eyes glassy. Do you think he loved us? Like, actually loved us? I thought about it for a long time before answering. In his own broken way, maybe. But he didn't know how to show it without hurting someone. Jacob nodded, silent. Then he started the truck. Let's go meet him, he said. We found the garage easily, small, two-bay shop with a hand-painted sign that said Holloway Auto and Repair. Through the open door, we could see him, Ben, under a car hood, wiping grease off his hands. And I swear to God, he looked like both of us. The same eyes, the same damn jawline. Jacob froze. I could tell he wanted to turn around, but he didn't. He just stood there, watching. Then Ben looked up. Hey, he called, friendly and unsuspecting. Can I help you guys with something? Jacob opened his mouth, but no words came out. His voice broke before it even started. So I said it for him. Yeah, I said quietly. We're your brothers. He laughed, thought we were joking. Yeah, right. But then he looked closer, and I saw it. The exact moment recognition hit him. His smile faded, and the silence that followed felt like the world holding its breath. Ben just stood there, staring at us, a wrench still in his hand, the sound of the car's engine ticking as it cooled behind him. You're serious? He said finally, his voice small, uncertain. Jacob nodded. Yeah, we're serious. Ben set the wrench down slowly. I don't understand. My mom, she never said anything about you. I took a breath. We just found out too. 2 weeks ago, our dad passed away. He left letters and a picture of you. His face shifted, like the words hit, but didn't make sense yet. My dad, he said softly. You mean? He trailed off. Jacob answered for me. John Walker. Ben blinked hard. No, that's not. Mom said my dad died before I was born. She wasn't lying, I said carefully. Not exactly. He just wasn't around. He turned away, ran his hands through his hair, pacing a few steps before stopping. Why now? Why come here now? Jacob's jaw tightened. Because we didn't know you existed. Because we spent our whole lives believing a version of that man that wasn't real. And because you deserve to know the truth, even if it sucks. Ben didn't say anything for a while. He just kept shaking his head, whispering, holy shit, under his breath. After a minute, he walked back to us. What do you want from me? Nothing, I said. We just wanted to meet you. He looked at me, then at Jacob. His expression softened, just slightly. You really do look like him, he said. Both of you. Jacob gave a small, bitter laugh. Yeah, that's what everyone says. I'm starting to wish I didn't. Ben hesitated, then asked, so, what was he like? I mean, the real him. I looked at Jacob, then back at Ben. Complicated. Strict, stubborn, angry at the world. But underneath it, he cared. He just didn't know how to show it without screwing everything up. Ben nodded slowly. Yeah, sounds like the stories Mom used to tell about her own dad. We stood there for a bit, the three of us, not knowing what to say next. The air smelled like oil and asphalt and something else, like an ending we didn't see coming. Finally, Jacob said, You busy after work? Ben frowned. No, not really. Then come with us, Jacob said. We're going to see our mom. You deserve to hear the rest from her. Ben hesitated. You sure that's a good idea? Jacob's voice was firm. No, but it's the right one. The drive back was quiet, but not awkward. Just heavy. Ben sat in the back seat, looking out the window, his reflection blending with ours in the glass. I could feel him processing everything in silence. When we pulled up to Mom's house, Jacob cut the engine. The house looked smaller than I remembered. The same porch swing, the same chipped mailbox with Walker fading off the side. Mom opened the door before we even knocked. She must have seen us through the window. Her eyes went wide when she saw Ben. "Oh God," she whispered. "Mom," Jacob said, his tone gentle but edged with steel. "We found him." She closed her eyes, hand over her mouth. "You shouldn't have." "No," he cut her off. "You should have told us." Tears welled up in her eyes. "I was trying to protect you boys. You were already drifting so far apart. And your father, he made me promise. Said he'd handle it one day." Jacob's voice cracked. "Well, he didn't. He died before he ever faced it." She looked past us then, at Ben. "You must be Ben." He nodded slowly. "Yes, ma'am." She stepped forward, trembling, and touched his face like she needed to make sure he was real. "You have his eyes," she whispered. He didn't pull away. "So it's true, then?" She nodded, tears streaming down. "Yes. I'm sorry. I wanted to hate you for existing, but I couldn't. You didn't ask for any of this." Jacob's voice was softer now. Neither did we. For a moment, it felt like all of us were standing in a space that didn't belong to any of us. A crossroad between the past and what came next. Mom invited us in. We sat at the kitchen table, the same one Dad used to sit at every morning with his coffee and paper. The air felt haunted. She told us everything. How she found out about Rachel. How Dad swore it was over, that he'd made a mistake he'd regret for the rest of his life. How she almost left him, but didn't because she wanted to keep the family together. How, when I crashed the car that year, Dad blamed himself because he'd been gone when I needed him most. He thought punishing you would make him feel less guilty, she said, looking at me. He couldn't forgive himself for what he'd done, so he took it out on you. I felt something break inside me. All those years of hating him, of hating myself, because I thought I was the problem. And it had all been him, trying to bury his own shame. Jacob was silent, staring at the table. His fingers traced the old scratches in the wood. "And the will?" he asked finally. "Why tell me to ask my brother why?" Mom sighed. "Because Evan saw it. The affair. He was the only one who knew the truth. Your father wanted to make sure the truth came out, no matter what." Jacob nodded slowly. His jaw tightened, but his eyes softened. "Guess he got what he wanted." For a while, nobody spoke. Then Ben said quietly, "So what happens now?" Mom smiled weakly through her tears. "Now, we try to be better than he was." Jacob leaned back, exhaling deeply. "That's a low bar," he said, and somehow we all laughed. Tired, broken laughter, but real. We sat there for hours, talking. About Dad, about the years we lost, about how weird it felt to suddenly gain a brother at the exact moment we lost a father. Before leaving, Mom pulled out one more thing, a small envelope. "Your father wanted this to go to both of you," she said, handing it to Jacob and me. Inside was a photo of the three of us as kids, me, Jacob, and Dad, standing in front of that old Ford truck. On the back, in his handwriting, it said, "Forgive me. Family isn't blood. It's who you choose to love, even when you're broken." I don't know if that was supposed to make it better, but somehow, it did. When we dropped Ben back off at the garage later that night, he hugged us both before he went. Jacob didn't even hesitate this time. On the way home, the road was dark and quiet. The kind of quiet that felt peaceful for once. Jacob glanced over at me. "You ever think he knew this would happen?" I shrugged. Maybe that was the point." He nodded, smiling faintly. "Guess we finally gave him the ending he couldn't write himself." And for the first time in years, I didn't feel like Dad's disappointment anymore. Just his son. And a brother, finally, who wasn't running anymore. If you made it all the way to the end, thanks for sticking with me. I really appreciate it. If you enjoyed the story, consider subscribing to the channel and giving the video a like. It helps me share more stories like this. Thanks.